It's time to assemble this beauty. All right, we have our ESC mounted, routed, everything is into the inside. Now, so we can get this cowl finished up, we're going to go ahead and put inserts in here, and this is so that way any vibration doesn't walk those screws any bigger. So I use these inserts from the inside. So we're going to open up those holes here. I just use a body reamer, so that way we don't splinter the paint. And we'll just keep working that until the sizing is right. And then once all 4 of those are in, we'll apply a little bit of CA from the other side, and then we melt this side down. So there you could see how that one's in, so that one's done. Let's do the other ones. All right, now that all 4 of those are in, we're just going to push them back into the inside a little bit. We're going to take some of our CA here. Again, Star Bond is what we use. Put a nice squisher in there. And now we're just going to push those into place like that. Just make sure you don't leave them too far in the inside, because that gives you a little bit of vibration resistance too. Once you're happy with that, Star Bond accelerator. Now comes the fun part. So this, if you do this right, A, you won't melt the cowl, and B, you melt this down far enough that it just sticks out above the paint. And then that gives you something to crush. You can almost crush that spacer right around the opening. And then that will give your bolt something to really push against. And then it won't vibrate loose. So just about to the point where you're going to touch the paint. Now it's time to make some servo wires. Now that we have our extensions made, and I make them long so that way we can cut them to length later. The manual shows that the rudder servo goes closest. The drive gear goes closest to the tail. So as we fish all this wire in, I'll pull it through later. All right, rudder's done. Let's go do the elevator. All right, here you can see the little wire holders for the elevator and rudder servo going up the side. If you're worried about them still popping out of there doing maneuvers, because we're going to open up that little opening right there for airflow through the plane. But you could always just chase them with just a dab of hot glue, and that'll keep them things in place and keep them insulated, if you will. But otherwise, yeah, plenty of extra wire. We're going to go ahead, mount our receiver in here somewhere, and then get some extensions made for our wings. We'll get some extensions made for our wings into the receiver so we can plug and unplug from a connection and not the receiver. We'll get the ESC wired in, get our battery placed in here. We got our on and off switch. So it's coming together pretty quick, and then once we do that, then we can go ahead and start powering up some servos, finish linkage. All right, so our wing servos are just barely long enough, so we had to make some extensions. So we're gonna put that there. Gonna put on a pretty blue little servo connector lock so we don't have to worry about that coming loose. And then we're going to use some of these little holders. We 3D print these things. You can squeeze them, open them up like so, and just so we don't have any drippers. Some Star Bond thick CA. Right there on that edge. Perfect. Time to make 2 more ends, one for the elevator, one for the rudder. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our linkage to the rudder, elevator, and the ailerons over there. They give you these well-identified bags for all the pieces. Hardware looks really good. We're going to add a little bit of anodized bling to this to dress it up a little bit, but otherwise we're using 1.25" arms, and should have plenty of throw here. There's lots of available movement, and everything. Hinges are a little dry there, but yeah, you can look at how much throw you have in this plane. This thing should be a blast to fly, so let's get to it. All right, our arms are centered up really well. Linkage is attached. We got our little anodized washers on there. I like that to bring a little bit of color to the thing. Don't forget just a drop of Loctite on that center screw. And when you install these, make sure that if you have servo arms that have a pinch bolt, you want this center one snugged first. And then you want to move on to the pinch. That way it's all the way down and seated, which is the most important part of it. And then just tighten up your pinch bolt. There. Okay. And that is our rudder linkage. Let's get to doing all the others. To attach these fairings, all we're going to do is we're going to take and work a little bit of some regular clear silicone down in here to hold it to the gear legs, and then we're going to tape them into place. All right, let's talk about the last couple steps. So the receiver is mounted, wiring is tidied up. We have battery straps in there. Right now we have a 6S 4500 just sitting in there. We will see how the CG works out using the Chikoi CG machine and the Fly Right CG jig. That's a lot of words in one sentence. So anyway, that's just a rough fit for now. We're using the Amos 150 anti-spark on the inside. You could see how we did our aileron connectors into those little housings right there. So those things will just clip in. We put a dab of hot glue just to keep the wires from popping out of them holders all the way back through. And the last thing we had to do is cut out that little silver square right there. I would advise you to take a heat gun and press around all that wood to make sure it's firmly attached before we go and cut it so it doesn't form any wrinkles. And then take a nice sharp X-Acto knife, make a nice clean cut all the way around, and save that. That's extra covering. So otherwise, guys, that is a wrap for the assembly. We have all of our linkages done. We still have to set throws, so we will work on that next. Here's a little trick for you. If you're not super trusting of these things, and I don't, you can drill a super tiny hole right there through those carbon dowels on the inside and slide a cotter pin through there so I don't lose them. I wrap a string around and put it through one of the formers, and that way they always stay on the inside of the plane and you can clip them in. So even if that comes undone, this thing will never just pop out that way. So yeah, so there's that. All right, let's get the throws set. Now this is just a little miracle gauge. We're going to set the aileron throw from the widest point, and we're just going to make sure that that thing centers itself on 0. Now I want you to be very careful here when you look at these directions, because they give you the high rate for the throws at 40% the left and the right side. Normal is 30. Oh, but that's not 30 degrees. That's 30% of that number. So let's do the math. It's 12 degrees, right? So on a normal, if you just want a normal kind of pattern flying plane, which more than likely I'm going to do more than anything, we want to make sure that we don't have all of that 40 in there, that we just have that 12. And I like mine a little bit more aggressive than the book. So there is my 15 normal up and down. All right, and then if I want my high rates, I don't use 3 position. Now I'm actually even slight less than 40. I'm at only 35 because I want to get used to the plane before I go nuts with it. And again, I'm not a 3D pilot. That's not my thing. I've also dialed in 25% expo on low rates, and I have about 45% on high rates, which is just that way it's not real high where it's just like nothing, 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 and bang, you get all that throw. It's a little bit more linear of a feel that way. But be careful with the math on this stuff, guys, so you don't overthrow your airplane. Now, they also give you some other great information on the inside about mixes. I have a buddy I fly with, Mr. Ronnie. He does a lot of this mixing in his plane, so that way it flies more true, and I'm assuming that that's what they're going to do here. But they give you recommendations for rudder to elevator mix and rudder to aileron mix. Fly your plane and see if that's something you want to do. Also, I really like how they give you CGs here. 13 centimeters or 130 millimeters is good for pattern and windy conditions. 14 is good for 3D stuff. I'm going to start maybe 13 just a little bit back and go from there. We always want to get used to the plane before we go nuts with it. All right, so you can see I cut that out in the center and I left a good amount there. I didn't cut it clean to the edges, and that's so I can go ahead and tuck those edges around using a heat iron. So let's go ahead and get to that. All right, when it comes down to balancing my planes, I just absolutely love the Chikoi CG machine. And yes, it is pronounced Chikoi. We discuss this all the time. I do prefer Zikoi, but it is Chikoi. So anyway, I prefer this setup for all of my planes. And here, what I'm using with it from Fly-Right RC, this is the Chikoi CG jig. So this thing here, made out of super cool aluminum, has extensions for longer tails, works really well, and I want to show you why. So basically, when it comes down to it here, especially like if you want to really fine tune in your CG on big planes, especially if you want aerobatic planes and you're like, okay, maybe a little bit more CG aft, maybe a little bit more forward, I'm basically using an 8100 6S pack in here. This is exactly where it needs to be to balance at the 13 centimeters that the manufacturer calls for. And what I can do here that's super cool is when I go in and I select my model, is I have to put in this data, this information, distance from this, distance from that. And it's kind of hard to do with a ruler and strings and lasers and all that type of stuff. So here, these gantries give me those exact measurements as they slide up and down the rails. And you could see the lasers right here that I'm using to make distance measurements here from the front of the mains or the center of the mains to my CG point, all you do is you just take this, you start it. As you can see, that laser coming in right at my axle, right? So that's my 0 number, and then I take it to where I want my CG to be, and I pull that number off of there, and then I input it into this thing. So right now we have a standard pattern flying kind of setup. And now I know from this pack at this exact spot that if I go more aft, we'll pull my CG. And if I want to change packs or anything else, I put the little fuzzies underneath if I want to experiment at the field. But here in the layer, I like to actually know exactly what packs I'm going to run. I'll mark it on the inside, exactly where the pack should fall, and then I know where that CG is. If I want to change a pack or change the way it flies, I could put it back on the jig and experiment to dial in a little bit closer. So again, Fly Right RC. This is the Chikoi CG jig with the Chikoi CG machine. So there you go. Oh, by the way, a lot of you guys will ask, so let's do it. We'll go back to here and look at weight. With that pack, 7.58 pounds. Let's be fair and throw the canopy back on. 7.87. I don't think you're going to get away from that weight because of the pack in there. Let me mark that before I pull it out, and then we'll see what the plane weighs by itself. All right, weight of this plane without the battery, 5.86 pounds. So there you have it. The other cool thing here that you can see is if you look at the weight on each gear leg, if you're worried about side-to-side balance, it gives you some pretty good numbers to work with. Here's the pack that I found that I'm going to run in this plane. And there you have it. That wraps up the Sebart Extra SX from Gator-Rc. So the assembly process of this plane was pretty straightforward, pretty easy. I really didn't run into anything that was difficult. It went together rather quickly. I'm pretty excited to get this thing out to the field and fly it. So I have this set up right now for a little bit more pattern flight with a little bit more nose heavy CG. We opted on the SMC 8100 packs for this, but ultimately all of the stuff I'm going to use will be down in the description below, so you can get links to all of this stuff. But ultimately, I think the quality, fit, and finish of this model was outstanding comparison to about anything else I've touched. So the only thing I think that was a downside is just a little bit of the cowl paint lines don't quite match up to the fuse real perfect. But, you know, depending on what motor you use, that's going to alter that a good bit. So with that being said, the assembly's done, ready to get it to the field, ready to get this thing flying and see what it can do. But I'm excited. Super lightweight, should be super powerful, even for success. So do me a favor. Links down in the description below again. If you're interested in this model from Sebart or anything else airplane related, head on over to Gator-Rc, www.gator-rc.com. Remember, this will be available in 2 different schemes, the blue and the silver and the red and the silver as well. But they also have a full line of products from Seagulls models, Top RC models, Sebart, Maxford USA, covered, uncovered, ARF models, you name it. So your kind of one-stop hobby shop for anything that you could possibly be looking for, you can find it there. So with that being said, I'm Brendan. This is Just Plain Crazy. You're just plain crazy for always hanging out and watching. I appreciate every one of you. Do me a favor, shameless plug, like, share, subscribe, all right? Hit this thing. If you're going to hit this, definitely give me 2 of those for sure. Don't forget to check out the official Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok Just Plain Crazy pages, as we always upload different things to that media as well. So, guys, and next time you see me, we'll be off at the field. We got lots of maidens to get done. So I wish you happy flights. Peace out.